Okay, so first question, sorry, like what inspired you to become a filmmaker?
Mm, I think that happened kind of step by step. When I was like a kid and a teenager, I really loved to take pictures and film whatever I could. I would document just the most insignificant things, you know. Um, I like used the like regular like these funny cameras of 8 megapixels, the one that the lens just kind of like goes out when you like turn the camera on. Remember, I don't know if you know these kind of cameras, like very small ones. Yeah, so I kind of like filmed a lot, and I installed these like editing programs, this very old, funny like Windows Movie Maker where you had these funny transitions. So I like it wasn't anything serious. It was just a play. I was really curious, how these programs work, and also like like Photoshop. I like to do something, like some experiments, but I never thought of it as something serious. Only now I can remember it and say, oh, maybe that was a sign for something bigger. But at the time, I was just, I wasn't thinking about like making a career out of this at all. So it was just fun for me. Yeah, and I think like when I was finishing high school, I thought that I wanted to write. So I enrolled into the university to study journalism. But after 1 year, I quit because I realized it's not what I meant by saying I want to write. Because I wanted to write like to like to create something, to fantasize something, not report or write as a journalist. So I quit eventually and entered film school. Yeah, I think that's where it started to become more serious, I guess.
So like what was your experience in film school? Like there are filmmakers, they talk about don't go to film school. Like what's your opinion? That should, if someone wants to become filmmaker, should they go to film school or no film school?
Yeah, it's I know there is this like a notion that yeah, I'm gonna be a filmmaker without going to film school because film school is shit. I mean, honestly, I would say at the time when I was like when I enrolled the film school in Lithuania and Vilnius, it was very different from what it is now. Now it's kind of more, respectable, more professional. There is like a proper system of, educating film students. Then it was just very chaotic. I mean, very, I had very shady professors. Mostly it was just us, like me and my course mates, like getting together to create something because there were no like proper rules of how to make something. And I remember when we were in the, I think we were in the last year, like fourth year of film school, and this new professor, this like um, proper Lithuanian screenwriter and director, was hired for, like it was her first year and like being a professor at this film school. And I remember the first lecture, and she asked, "Okay, so you're like at the fourth year. What do you want to learn?" And we were like, how to write a script, maybe. And she was like, really? You're almost like have bachelor degree and you never learned how to write a script? And we're like, yeah, like literally we didn't. So what we did like these 4 years, it was mostly like experimenting. We had some, assignments, but we would just we didn't know how to make like a short film. We would do like 30, 40-minute films, with the ambition for it to become a feature film for like uh, several hundred euros in budget. So, I mean, it was just very, very funny. And it's very funny to remember it. But I think that the creativity that we had and the aspiration to like learn through experimentation and to help each other as a group, like me and my course mates, we really, I mean, we got together and made a lot of short films. And I think I don't regret this at all. I even think that maybe it helped. This freedom kind of helped, because as you said, some people say don't go to film school, don't enter this like very strict system, and we didn't have the strict system. We were kind of like in the water all the time. So I guess that was my experience with the film school. It's kind of ambiguous. I couldn't say that I don't regret it at all. It like I entered a zone of creativity there, but also it wasn't like a what I would consider like a proper film education.
Okay, okay, got it. So let's talk about your film Toxic. You have won a Golden Leopard at Locarno. First of all, congratulations. You have won Golden Peacock in India. Again, congratulations. And it has traveled all over the world. So Toxic explores the dark side of the modeling industry. Like, what drew you to this subject?
I like at first I wasn't thinking about exploring a modeling per se. It was more like exploring um, lives of teenagers regarding this particular um point on map. I mean, this region of Eastern Europe, of like Baltic countries, and I couldn't avoid to going back to the time when I was a teenager. So it kind of like this context of modeling kind of fit this environment that I wanted to explore. Um, because at that time when I was a teenager, it was very popular to be, to try to aspire to be a model. Everybody was looking for these Eastern European models, a certain type. And I kind of like I started to write a story as like a general story about two 13-year-old girls, but I watched this film, this documentary from 2011, which is called Girl Model. It's by these American filmmakers, David Redman and Ashley Sabin. I think I've mentioned it before in some interview. But yeah, like it was also a story of, regarding like very young teenagers, and very young, I mean 13, 14-year olds, even 12-year olds. And I watched this film, and it was like a documentary following this modeling scout and these girls that go to Japan to work as a models, these like 13-year-old girls. And yeah, after watching this film, I thought, wow, this really fits the description of the characters that I want to create in my film. This very, young, pale, thin 13-year-olds. And I think, step by step, this context of like modeling and this narrative of modeling school incorporated in the film, because it was a story about girls wanting to escape the place where they're living. And I use this like a modeling school, this institution, as their, as their desire, or as their dream, or as an institution that could carry their dream, and that could help execute their dream to escape this place. So yes, it kind of fit the narrative. And as I said, I felt kind of close to this topic because um, yeah, I had a fair share of being connected to these kind of aspirations when I was a teenager.
Okay. So from the initial idea to like completing the script, how much time it took to for the writing process, and have you also participated in various script labs or this like labs program?
Um, I think the general writing, because it's hard to evaluate, because it happened in stages. At first I wrote a treatment for the script, then I applied for some funds, then I was writing for maybe 3 or 4 months, then I did like a break, and then for like 2 months more or 3 months more, and then I would just revisit the script for like 1 month or so, uh, to to write new ideas, to reform it. It was an ongoing process, and I think uh, after maybe, since I wrote the treatment, it was maybe 1 year, uh, when we submitted like when we submitted a script for, the production, but then I rewrote it several times. So yeah, it's like 2 years since I started writing. We were, I guess, yeah, 2.5 years after I started writing, we were on the set, because, it was this process, in Europe, when you're making a film, you kind of like apply for various stages of funds. And when you apply, you have to wait, then you get some funds, then you work a little bit, then you apply for more, and then you wait. So, it's not that you write a script and go into production. So it's more waiting than actual like work on the film. But I use this waiting for, reevaluating what I wrote. And I think the last rewrite was when I already started to, then already started casting, and then during the casting process, and then actually even after we were rehearsing, because we tried some things with actors, and I instantly realized that it doesn't work, so I have to rewrite it a little bit, but it was only, in the sense of a dialogue. So yeah, that was the process.
Okay, brilliant. So the relationship between Marisa and Christina is both intimate and destructive. So what was your approach to developing their dynamic?
At first, it was a kind of a stereotypical story, I would say, like the ones that we saw numerous of times. Well, I mean, at first, when I just started writing and imagined these characters, Christina being this cool girl, that really takes Maria under her wing, and she's, daredevil and crazy, and Maria very shy, anxious, awkward. These kind of films, these kind of stories where these kind of girls meet. But what happened after, during the casting process, it was so funny, because at first I found a girl who could be Christina, the the actress who played her, and she was actually like 12 at that time. So she was just very, very small. Like she was a child basically, and she had basically nothing to do with this character that was written in the script. But I just really wanted Christina to be like physically childish, like a very small, like very young. And I kind of like persisted, and I like we did a lot of workshops with her and other teenagers, but I kind of like try to understand if she will be able to execute this role, because I imagine that I may be casting older girl for this, because in the film there's like a lot of intense scenes, and this character supposedly has to be portrayed as like a having more experience. And this actress, like, she was an absolute child. And then I met the girl, the Vesta, who played Maria, and she was more than 2 years older than the girl that played Christina, and she was more, more courageous and more chill and more laid back. And I thought, wow, this is like completely opposite what I expected. But I was very lucky to have this feeling in my gut that this might work, because at the end both of the characters became very complex, because they brought other side to what was written. Because if Christina, as I mentioned, had to be, this very brave crazy girl, she brought out of herself so much like insecurity and anxiousness, because in the film we kind of like feel that she's portraying this character of supposedly very cool girl, but she doesn't feel like this inside. So that was brought by an actress herself, personally. And with Maria's character we see, the shyness and awkwardness, but also we see these splashes of aggressiveness, that was brought also by the actress herself. So, by casting different people for these kind of roles, different from what was written, really helped me and really helped this film because there, more depth for the character appeared when we were shooting these scenes.
So critics have compared Toxic to films like Ulrich Seidel and Mika Gustafsson. So did you draw inspiration from their work?
Yeah, Ulrich Seidel definitely. We kind of used his films as a references for some composition and color. I think we there was like a straightforward reference for color grading from Ulrich Seidel's film from the trilogy, Love, Hope, and Faith, I guess. Yeah. So Faith, no, Love, Faith, and Hope. Yeah, Hope. So we used the reference from the film Hope by Ulrich Seidel. It's like a film about these teenagers in the fat camp, and I remember that we sent like to the guy who did color correction. We sent this like a shots from this film because we wanted it Toxic to kind of like use it as a reference. So yeah, definitely. Uh, I think the DOP of Toxic, Vytautas Katkus, he was really insistent for me to, because I knew Oleg Seidel, I was familiar with his work, but I wasn't very much into it. But he was kind of like insisting me, just check it out, check this film out. This could work for Toxic, as like a color palette. And yeah, and he was absolutely right.
So the use of music in Toxic has been noted as particularly effective. So how did you choose the soundtrack to enhance the film's mood?
Well, the whole soundtrack was originally created for the film. It wasn't like we chose some existing tracks, and we spent a lot of time with the composer making this music. I think like he started in October and finished in April, I guess. It was like 6 months, 7 months, something like that. So, because we kind of like we started from scratch, as a reference, because I love this witch house band from the US called Salem, and I remember I sent the composer, you know, compilation of the tracks of this band, and yeah, and I asked him maybe we could use it as a reference for this film because like this witch house sound really fit this film for me because there is a lot of context of like witchcraft, occult, and this kind of general, I don't know, uh atmosphere of darkness and of dark magic, in the modeling school where it kind of seems like a cult, and these symbols, and you see, on the walls and the paintings and in the area where the action is taking place. So yeah, this style really fit, and it also like it has this uh, witchy occult sound, but also mixed with very infantile elements, like infantile, teenage, childish, voices, innocent. So it really, really fit the film, and we used it as a reference and the composer at some point suggested to use this voice of this once famous Lithuanian pop artist from the 90s because he had some recordings of her voice and he has very high pitched voice, and at first he used it in one track, and then I said, "Wow, let's just go for it. Let's use it for like all the soundtrack because it really fit." And almost in every track you can hear, this, inarticulated sounds made with the voice, some syllables. So yeah, we kind of used a lot of her voice, and at the end there is like the ending track of the film. It is the song by this pop artist from 1998 remixed into our well, remixed and slowed down and like changed, but there is, this song exists but in a very different form. So it was kind of nostalgic as well, we played a lot of with nostalgia, and it was nostalgic for us to use her voice because she's kind of, you know, from way other generation. Yeah.
So while making Toxic, like what was the most difficult and challenging part, like making the film?
Well, I guess the casting process was very, very difficult. I mean, because I had the script, I had these crazy characters written down, and when we started, like, when we started the process from like moving from the script, because at first when you write a script, you just, you know, using your imagination and things like that, and everything is possible because you just have to imagine and write it down. But when you actually start to like enter the production process in Lithuania, which is like a very small country, not much people, not very diverse. I mean, you're just so limited and like finding people for these roles, it's crazy. And you know, okay, so like for these teenage girls, it was hard because um, the requirements for an like we don't have professional actors at all, like professional actors of like teenagers and kids. So we kind of like had to find a person which was like 13, 14-year old, which could play, you know, as a professional basically, and could prepare to be in this kind of scene. It was just very hard to find and to know, because when you meet a person, you it's not like somebody comes in and just is instantly good at everything. You have to prepare for like 6 months, and you have to just try to feel in your gut is this is the right person. So it was very hard because till the first day on set, I had no idea if I chose the right people, you know, basically. Uh, and so this is for the main characters. And for other characters, like there was this giant girl, because when I was a kid, I had this neighbor, you know, that lived like next door, and we never saw her because her parents would just usher her out to some, I don't know, social center or the hospital and bring her back into the apartment. So basically, she wouldn't even have time to say hello because her parents were kind of like ashamed of her. So I really wanted to portray this character in the film, this giant girl, kind of like detached from the rest of the crew of teenagers, you know, in the area. And I remember the casting director started to say, she said like, you know, you're sending me references of these like giant people who are like tall as, you know, to the ceiling, but it's like photos from 1930s where like these illnesses are curable now, like with various like hormonal treatments, and it's like they don't exist anymore. And I remember like we had all cast, we all like we were preparing for the shooting, and we didn't have this girl, and we kind of started to think maybe to change to something else. But then the casting director went to some exhibition, like there was some video art of some Lithuanian artist, and she saw this video where in the background for like 2 seconds this girl passes, and she saw her and she said, "Wow, like I need to find her." And she kind of like contacted this artist, find out where this video was taken. It was some social center in my hometown actually, and we went to the social center and met with this girl, and it was crazy that we found her. Like you cannot imagine like how I was so overwhelmed, and I thought, wow, like the universe really wants me to make this film because they even like helped me find her in my hometown, and I found out that she lives in the like in the area which I'm from. It's just such a coincidence. It was crazy. So yeah, so like, and you see a lot of other like there are so many characters there, and it really was a hard process, you know, when you don't know if you're gonna find a person that could fit your, you know, image of imagination.
So as I said, like the film has traveled all over the world. So what has been the audience response to the film, and do you find any difference, like while the film traveling from different region to region, the audience response has changed?
Yes, it's kind of. it's hard to evaluate how the response has changed because in every country, in every city, there are, the audience are kind of sometimes they're very responsive and very engaging in the film, sometimes not so much, sometimes divided, parts of the audience are very engaging, some of the people kind of just leave after the screening and don't want to talk about it. So it's very hard to draw like some particular picture. But I guess I have a little sense that people from societies which are considered of more poorer side, they understand this film from like more personal perspective, not some watch it as some kind of like exotic tale from, some kind of poverty porn or something like this. So, I got a lot of messages from people from South America, for example. I never been there, but it was at several festivals, and I got so many messages, and even when I check, Letterbox, you can see like from which countries people like are saying what. So there's like a lot of comments from that part of the world. Uh, and yeah, and I heard like I wasn't at Goa Film Festival, but I heard it was like a lot, a lot of people came to see the film, and there was like an amazing discussion afterwards, and the reception was great. So I guess, I'm happy about this because it was a film, meant to explore lives of people who live into this, marginalized societies, basically, because these societies are more susceptible to this kind of predatory behavior, when some rich person comes to save you, or, you're at mercy of like, at someone who has the money, who has the funds to make your life better. So I wanted to talk about this, and it was important for me because, even though Lithuania is like in the European Union now, we still feel as like a kind of like an appendix of Europe, which, if somebody would say we have to get rid of part of Eastern Europe, we have to get rid of part of some, Europe. So this part would be just got rid of instantly, because we're just neither there nor here, and we're kind of like in this limbo all the time at mercy of bigger countries with more money because we cannot carry on surviving by ourselves basically in this political situation especially. So I was happy that, you know this this film was appreciated and like understood by the people from, you know these kind of societies.
Like, are there any films and filmmakers that have influenced you a lot? Like, can you name 4 or 5 films or filmmakers?
I mean, it's kind of different, talking about influences like that we use for this particular film and like filmmakers that influence
In
me
general,
generally.
in generally,
Yeah,
your
in
favorite films.
general. Uh, my favorite films. I will not go into the detail of my favorite films because it's like the hardest thing to answer. I love filmmakers such as Agnes Varda. I love Eliza Hittman, American filmmaker. I love her humanist gaze towards people. It's just very impressive, and I don't know, chicken soup for the soul. Um, I love actually I love this also American filmmaker Todd Haynes. I remember I was like, his film Safe from the 90s was one of my favorite films for a very long time. And sometimes when I mention this film, a lot of people haven't even seen it. It's weird because it's such a like so authentic and just so mysterious. And I mean, it's really like I love his work. Also, Harmony Korine from more like a stilistical perspective, of, I love how he casts the weirdos, and he's like a portraying this, peculiar diversity in his films. So I just really love it. the weirdness of it. What else? Yeah, I kind of like Greek New Wave films, even though they're some of them are a bit arrogant, I would say, but I love this wave. I love what they did in 2010s. It's it's very impressive, so and very inspiring. Yeah, yeah, I think so.
So, Solly, my last question is like there are a lot of aspiring filmmakers like all over the world. Like you have made a film and you won so many awards. So, what advice would you give to them, like if they want to become a filmmaker and make the film?
It's so crazy because I was for a very long time at this site where I was asking this question like, what should I do? What could I do to become, a filmmaker? I don't know this, and now I'm in this position where I'm asked this question as I'm like considered more established one, and this is, you I am absolutely sure that you never know how it's gonna turn out. Sometimes you make a film, you don't expect anything, and it's, rings a bell for so many people, travels to so many festivals, and it's crazy, but it's it's impossible. There is like no algorithm to follow, and if you follow some kind of algorithm, like I don't know, maybe you can make some film that would be successful, but just the key to filmmaking, I guess, is like really searching for what is important to you and what you want to portray, and not try to like use anything to get into some festival, because I think this is what is wrong with, film industry in general, because people just now want to get into festivals. This is like the main goal. And I understand because I mean, if you're a filmmaker, if you want to be a filmmaker, you want to be in the festivals because then only then you get established, only then you get, doors opening for you for, bigger productions, more funds, and things like that. And if you don't go into the festival, nobody cares about you. But I don't know. This is like, for me, I think that this is a problem because a lot of great films are overlooked. And sometimes, 10, 10 of 10 years can pass till you're noticed by somebody. So I think what people should really do is just try to, be sensitive for the world, and be sensitive for the problems of this world, and what is, I don't know, um, and be sensitive for your own life. And I think just tell your story and tell what is important to you, even though it is a story of some small village where nobody knows where it is and nobody knows these people and these problems. But I think this authenticity is just really needed because like even though, everybody is now saying like, oh, we need this authenticity, and your film is so authentic, authenticity, authenticity. Like I started to hate this word because people want like industry people want authenticity, but at the same time, like all the films that are so non-authentic, like are algorithmically written and basically absolutely not authentic, are being funded and pushed out to the best festivals, main competitions, and things like that. So like I'm very thankful for Locarno Film Festival, which are kind of like, I think, one of the festivals that really look to, new films, like new points of view, new gaze towards, filmmaking and the world in general. So my advice for the, you know, up and coming filmmakers, just really look at where you are, don't try to impress anybody. Just tell you the story about your surroundings, because it just really, these voices need to be heard, and some festival and somebody eventually like see you, and yeah, just don't try to impress anyone because this is a road to hell, I guess.